to grind those down, but I don't want to do that in case we end up
using it again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
deciding to bail on that.
Yeah. So,
Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Laura and I am building out this 2013 Nissan NV 2500. And today I'm going to show you how we built this step, as well as give you a tour of my finished floor. So we actually ran into a number of issues with this step. The underneath down here is extremely customized. My dad did such a good job at making sure the pieces all fit together right. And we also ran into some issues with the door closing properly after the step was installed. So today you'll get to see my dad, the master, at work again at how he navigated getting the step to fit in place as well as getting the door to close. So we decided to take this metal piece off completely just to make it a little bit easier to build the boxed step in, just so we could get the back and the sides all connected. Where this metal piece connected to the side would have made it complicated if we had left it on. We built the step out of the same plywood that was left over from making the subfloor. The only difference is we did not frame it or put any insulation down, just because it was a much smaller area. This was a rather complicated project just because this was not an even square box that we needed to make. There were a lot of indents that we needed to take into consideration, as well as screws that we needed to drill holes for so that the board could fit into place properly. Now, my dad is quite the prankster. If you'll look closely on the wall behind him, you can see some red paint that he had accidentally splattered all over the wall. He decided to leave the paint there just because it's next to his table saw, and it looks like he had had an accident and cut himself badly. Here are some of the customizations that we had to do to this piece of plywood. Not only did he drill holes for the screws to go into, but he indented the plywood so that the ribs in the back would fit properly. We ended up using some Gorilla Glue just to hold the wood in place before we screwed it together. And something that I learned is that Gorilla Glue works better if you wet the piece of wood before you put the glue on and stick the pieces together. We actually ended up using a caulking instead of an adhesive here to hold the step in place, just because we wanted to be able to remove it if necessary. And with all of these crazy indents that my dad made, this step fit like a puzzle piece and it does not budge. So we weren't worried about using caulking instead of a strong adhesive. Now here's where things got really fun. Initially, the door closed just fine with the wood step, but once we added the trim, the door no longer closed properly. At one point, the door actually got stuck shut, and it took us about 30 minutes to get it opened again. But knowing my dad, he was able to customize the trim and the step, and he got it to work. Now, I thought it would be a little bit overkill to put trim on the seams in the corners of this step. So my dad suggested using black caulking just to cover the seams so no moisture could get underneath. All right, so here is the final result for the step. This thing is very sturdy, it's level, it's protected by the trim, and honestly, it's perfect. This was definitely not easy to do, but I'm so happy with how it came out. Now, the area that gave us the most problems was over here where the door closes. My boyfriend and my dad spent hours customizing this in order for the door to close properly. They ended up having to take some off of the trim as well as the wood piece underneath, and then create this little indent in the step so the door would close. Initially, when we first built the box step, the door was closing, but when we put the trim on, it was creating more problems. Somehow we ended up having to take this indent here just so the mechanism could all go behind it. Now, my dad was not happy with the fact that we left with it looking like this, but we ended up running out of time and we had to leave Cleveland. We can always go back later and make this look a little prettier, but honestly, I think it looks great. I am so incredibly happy with the final result of my flooring. I really couldn't have asked for anything better. I think that this material is going to hold up really well, and I like the fact that if there does become a rip or a tear, I can take some black caulking to seal it up. And I can officially say that my flooring is finished. Okay, and so now that I've had this floor material for a little while now, a couple weeks, I wanted to give a report back and let you guys know how I'm liking it. And I have to say, I absolutely love it. There were a lot of reviews on Amazon for the material itself where people were complaining that it was too thin and whatever, and then it like creates bubbles when it's hot, and I have not had a single issue with it. I did have one area up here where I ripped it a little bit when I was installing it. But like I said in my last video, I just used some black caulking to seal it together, and you really can't tell, and that's going to be under a cabinet anyway. But I have already spilled stuff on it, and it wipes up very easily just with a towel. I've not had a single air bubble, and I do think that that is because I let the material heat up a little bit as I was applying it. We used the blow dryer and we did it on an extremely hot day, and we stretched it properly. So I think that proper installation is important just to make sure that you don't wind up with any bubbles or anything like that. All right, so this is gonna officially wrap up my flooring, and I seriously love it. I'm so happy with the material. I'm so happy with the trim. I'm so happy with the step, and I'm really excited to move on to some new projects. If you guys have any questions or comments on the step or on the floor itself, make sure you leave them for me below. All right, that's gonna be it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.